But there's so many things you can't predict right now. It makes it hard. So I think just learning to read and react. I mean, I obviously now get a chance to spend a lot of Ken. I would never be in a position to say, oh, I think Ken's wrong, because Ken's brilliant, and he certainly knows a lot more about what he's doing than me. I just know that if we end up taking a lot of people out of the country, and we end up in a situation where our spending creates a lot of upward pressure on interest rates, a lot of the air that drives real estate is going to come out. And I don't know, we can talk about like how's that going to factor in. And then the other thing I think that's important to remember is that real estate is regional, very, very regional. And so you have a set of things that are up here that are macro, tax rates on real estate, Fed policy, liquidity, interest rates, all that stuff, taxes. Then you have all the stuff that's really important, supply and demand, local economy, demographic, what niche are you in? Real estate's not an asset class. I mean, a piece of farmland is not the same as a high-rise in Manhattan. They're both real estate, but they couldn't be any more different. So I think you have to also look at that. Obviously, we look at real estate. I think everybody thinks of real estate as residential. That's like real estate, housing. When you listen to TV, it's all they talk about is housing.
Your shopping mall. So I bought one, department stores, food court, the whole 9 yards, and I did come out of it with a profit, but I've never worked so hard in my life. And I tell you, the just overall return on your time, which has, there's ROI in terms of dollars and there's ROI in terms of time. I mean, it's just with what you're fighting with competition online now, with staffing challenges that you have and changing patterns and people that maybe are not as respectful in public spaces as they used to be, is just a whole lot more problems than I see upside there. And the other thing I discovered is that there's a lot of these other centers, because when I bought one, I thought, well, do I want more, a little economy of scale? And what I looked into is that a lot of these deals you can buy at a big discount, but the reason they're at a big discount is because there's clauses in these commercial leases on the interior shopping malls that the occupancy falls below a certain level or foot traffic falls below a certain level, then all of a sudden none of the leases are binding anymore. So now everybody's wanting to get half off the rent or they just bounce. And so you've got this, talk about not a sticky rent roll, what a mess. So, it worked out. I got out of it relatively quickly, and I really did it for a different reason. It was in my hometown where I grew up, and it was just really, really run down. And I remember going there, as a kid, and feeling like, oh, this was, a fun thing, go see Santa, and, go hang out at the mall with my friends, and it just kind of made me sad to see it in such neglect. So we renovated, we fixed it up, and ultimately I came out of it, making a little bit of money. But it became more of a labor of love than it did a labor of profit. And so I think there's a big difference between the retail spaces that Ken was just talking about with those strip centers, pad site deals, and mixed use versus old school interior shopping mall stuff. That's dead, and it's not going up, it's only going down.
I would say how this all applies to single family is looking at these patterns. Where are people working and how has it changed? At Real Wealth, we've been a remote company since 2010, but a lot of companies have learned how to do it. And they've learned that they can really expand their pool of employees with people that don't live where the office is. So that, I don't think we're going back. Companies have learned how to keep their costs down, not having to pay these big office. How does that apply to single family? Well, it really opens it up, right? And you've got, with residential housing, it's always like looking at the demographics. You've got 15 million households being formed just, with the younger generation. Then you've got this massive baby boomer generation that is retiring but staying put longer but getting second homes. And so focusing on those two generations is really important. Like, if you're going to look at office, then baby boomers are more interested in suburban, medical office, something nearby, massages, all the things that you need to go and to stay young forever. That's huge. Suburban medical office would be something. But looking for the suburbs, the little suburbs where people, remember the 15 million people just forming homes, the households, they're going to probably want to be near good schools. It's kind of going back to the basics. They're going to want to be in commuting distance from where they do have to go to work a couple days a week, but they don't want to be too close to it if it's in the city, right? So to me, the opportunity still is looking in those suburban growth markets where more of these people will be moving to. I'm getting ahead of that curve.
I was going to say, I think the bigger story too is the knock-on effects with the banking system. And we all know the story of the regional banks, but it's much more extensive than that. From a standpoint, a lot of these international banks, Japan, the Norinchukin Bank of Japan was the recent one that was in the news, but it's most of the Japanese banks, and that's one of the reasons they're having a big crisis. It's not just the yen carry trade. And so what happens is they have their dollar funding costs go up. So it's the liability side of their balance sheet. So those dollars that they're borrowing, they're having to borrow at 3%, 4%, 5% when the Fed raises rates. Well, what they do when the rates are, let's say 3%, is they buy treasuries that are yielding 4%, they pocket the spread. What happens when their dollar funding costs go up to 5% or 6%, whatever it is, now all of a sudden the math doesn't work. And they've got negative cash flow. They've got a negative carry. So what they have to do is they have to sell those treasuries, but they have to go out the risk curve and they have to buy something that has a higher yield. So what most of them do, these international banks, is they buy CLOs in the United States, and the underlying asset of those CLOs is most often commercial real estate. So it's not just a commercial real estate problem. It's not just a regional banking problem in the United States. It's a global banking problem, and those global banks are what makes up the monetary system.
Yeah, I mean, like, we all know what a CLO is, but just in case, what's a CLO?
Collateralized loan obligation.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's just basically, you know, going back, did you ever watch The Big Short?
Yeah.
And you see the game of Gienger that they played where they have the different tranches?
Yeah.
That's a CLO.
Cool. So we're gonna be wrapping up. So do you guys have any final thoughts on all this stuff? We learned we had to know math and underwriting stuff and CLO. Apparently where people move is important and stuff too. Any other final thoughts?
I'll just say one thing. I bought buildings. We bought a building where there was a nuclear plant decommissioned, and all of a sudden nobody wanted to live in that building. You know, we bought buildings where big employers have gone, and all of a sudden we've done really well on a property that maybe wasn't before. So, real estate. Everybody forgets this a lot. It doesn't work without people. Period.
And you can't move it.
Period. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, how many of you have gone to a shopping mall recently? Like, that's why they're dying. Like, so you gotta sometimes we get down into the weeds. At the end of the day, just focus on just be where people are, and then buy the right stuff.
Just do that.
That's a good way to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody.
So I can tell you that the most valued and the most valued but misunderstood of those three is the capital. It literally is, because you can't do anything without the money. Like, you can't, and you guys have all passed up on great deals because you just couldn't get the money. But you've all done it. Or if you haven't, you will. And you'll maybe get a $5,000 referral fee or 50 grand and say thank you very much. And maybe when you're starting out, that 5 or 50 grand puts gas in the car and pays the bills, and that's fine, but that 50 grand could have been $5 million, right? Like the last building I bought, if I had flipped it to somebody else, I could have taken $1 million on the contract, just on the contract, because there was $5 million in built-in equity. But I wanted to own it, so I kept it, and now that $5 million is for me and my clients. Right? So that's the value of knowing how to have the cash first. So, but the starting point was, I looked at how can I add value to somebody like that to really even notice me. And those guys already know how to acquire, they know how to find deals, and some of them are relatively okay at finding capital, but they can't. But if you know how to bring money to the table, there's always a seat for you at the table. Like, there's always a seat for you at the table.
They'll make room for you.
They'll because you're the reason why the table got bigger. You know what I mean? So this is literally the number one skill set of an entrepreneur. The number one skill set. It is everything. It's where everything starts. Now, obviously, you have to have a good team, good acquisitions, good asset management. You have to be a good steward of the capital. But with no capital, you're just an employee for somebody else.
That's really what it is. If you can't get the money, you will work for somebody who does. Like that should be a soundbite actually. like literally, it's that's really the process. So I went to work with Ken. I didn't really care what I was going to make. I just wanted to do it. Did it for a couple of years. We raised, like I said, about 150 million for him, and that was in $09, which is like, I don't know, a gazillion dollars today or whatever it is today. It's a lot of money, right? And then in 2011, or I started in 08, 09. It was for the 2 years after I went out, did my own thing. I started an 8-figure equity fund, and Arizona was still a hot, well, the US was still a hot mess, obviously, back then. So we did an 8-figure equity fund, and then I bought medically anchored strip malls. And the reason why they're medically anchored is because Medicaid, Medicare always pays. So 2/3 of the mall was empty, but the 1/3 that had the orthodontist or the prosthetics manufacturer or the dentist or whoever it was that got paid Medicare and Medicaid, they always paid their bills, and those guys never move offices. The reason for it is because with the government bureaucracy, for them to change their office address is a whole process. So those guys always want a 10-year lease, and they always pay their bills because they're always going to get paid. So to me, it was a no-brainer. So we went out, we did an 8-figure equity fund. We bought a bunch of these medical plazas. And for those of you guys who understand commercial, with office and industrial, you typically pay on the, even if it's empty, you pay on the projected NOI, even if it was full. You don't do this with multifamily, but with commercial, you pay as if it was full, even if it's empty. It was so hard for them to sell back then that I only bought the value of the NOI on the actual cash flow of the building. So in other words, what were $5-6 million assets 2 years earlier, I was picking up for $1 million, $2 million. And my only regret is I did an 8-figure fund instead of a 9-figure fund because I was in my 20s, and I thought that was a lot of money at the time. It was a rounding error, but I didn't know that. And then the second piece was that we sold in 15, 16. We still did really well, but I mean, who the hell would have known that things were going to go the way they went, right? So we still cleaned up. I'm not mad at that, but you know. So what I should have done is refund, but we wanted to post a big exit for our clients. Everybody thought we were rock stars, and a year later, I'm like, shit. A year later, shit. So, you know, but we still, you know, we still.
Great resume builder.
Yeah, it was a resume builder, right? So the thing with Kenny, my fund that I did, I was telling this gentleman, I did a $70 million equity raise for an equipment leasing company. So what I'm gonna teach you guys here, whether you're in storage, multifamily, or starting a lemonade stand, as long as you need money, and you need at least 7 figures, at least $1 million or more, what I'm teaching you will work. Like it's the order in which I'm going to teach you guys the things that I'm teach you. It's applicable. 25 million for a consumer services business. Then we did a $100 million recap with the debt. Then we had a 9-figure valuation on the exit. Lots of multifamily. It's a skill. That is the skill. So you're in storage, sir. Michelle, I know you're in student housing. Actually, Michelle's somebody you guys are going to want to talk to. She's actually been a client of mine for 20 years.
Y'all already know how to deal with banks. That's not what this is. I'm not here to show you how to deal with banks. I'm here to show you how to raise an equity, which is the tough part. So, cool. And then how much are we raising for the next one now?
Well, I'll raise probably 4 to 5 million, depending on how
You're
many.
so casual about it.
Yeah,
man.
well,
We'll get it.
figure it out. He's given me the confidence to do that because I know I will. Because I'm building that funnel he'll talk about to be able to generate these leads. And if you look at my investors that I have from from my 100,000 to my 1.6, none of them are people that I would have even thought to reach out to, which is super interesting. Several of them were in my contacts, but I just never had thought that they were interested in this.
But it's how you framed it, how you positioned it, that gave you that confidence and create that urgency and scarcity, right?
Exactly, and they saw me as an expert in the area.
That's right.
So it was pretty cool.
That's right. Let's give it a round. That's awesome.
So, he knows what I'm just doing. Thank
That's
you guys.
cool. So I mean, so just in context, who in this room has raised capital before? Just to give me some clarity here. Okay, and who's raised more than $1 million? 5, 10. How much have you raised?
Probably about 40.
You raised about 40. Okay, so what's the next step for you? Like, what do you think is that next roadblock or limitation?
It's a long-winded. I have a real estate investment company, and that's what I've raised it through syndication acquisition. But now we're doing real estate tokenization with offerings, and all of our clients need to.
It's called the Fountains in Sun City, in Sun City, Arizona. It's a 55+ community, and the first investor I ever got was a $10,000 check. It was 5 or 10 grand. I don't even remember anymore. But I remember when this woman said yes to me. I'm like, okay. So are you home right now? She goes, yeah. I'm like, oh great, I'll be, you know, I'm gonna be in the area anyway. And then I'm like Google mapping or like map questing where this is. It turns out I put my foot in my mouth and I told her that I was gonna drive like 3.5 hours to pick up this check. But I was so surprised to have somebody say yes to invest with me that I was so self-conscious about it that I got in my car and drove 3.5 hours to go grab the check before she changed her mind. So what a transformation, right? Almost 20 years from $10,000 to having the audacity to sit at a boardroom and be like, I think you guys are missing a zero on this $100 million term sheet, right? Like it's, so that's kind of the point is, and when you guys develop the competence and the confidence in yourself and use some of these frameworks, you will be able to actually make a significant stride in your business. Now, for those of you who just come in, I was making the comment that in 2009, I went to Robert Kiyosaki's event. He had an event called How to Raise Capital, the #1 skill of an entrepreneur. And I still have the workbook marked up in like 36 different colors. And I remember I left that conference and I vowed to myself that this was gonna be the skill that I absolutely mastered. Like above everything else, I am gonna be great at this one thing. And that's what I think a lot of people are missing, is because there's 3 legs to the stool. There's the acquisitions, there's the capital raising, there's the asset management. And most of y'all are trying to do all of it. And initially that's fine, you gotta get a little momentum, maybe buy a 12-plex, maybe buy a 24 unit. But what's gonna happen very quickly is you're gonna find yourself doing a poor job at everything, because it's just too much. It's too much. You know, whether your property manager decides not to show up or your maintenance guy isn't there and you find yourself cutting the grass while you're on the phone with an investor, while you're dealing with the bookkeeper and trying to reconcile, eventually we'll get to a point where you'll just be like, this is too much. And in my mind, I decided right then and there at that conference that I was going to be the best at capital raising. So today I've got about 45 minutes and I'm going to walk you guys through literally the blueprint for the $200+ million in retail capital that I've raised, because we've done institutional as well, but just on the retail side, these are things that you guys are gonna be able to tangibly walk away with from here today. And if you want more help beyond that, I'll also show you guys how you can potentially work with us at M1 Inner Circle if you're qualified. So, good thing with them, and they don't know you, that's gonna get real weird real fast, and probably real illegal. So, you know, don't do that. Please, obviously get the right advice. Now, my promise here today, guys, is for you to show you guys how you're going to be able to raise millions of dollars without experience to transform your actual business itself. And the strategies are going to work for you guys regardless of what business you're in, if you're a business owner, if you're a real estate investor. Like literally these methodologies are going to work for you guys. And as I've said to you guys, Robert Kiyosaki said to me years back, the ability to raise capital is literally the most important skill of an entrepreneur. Money follows ideas, but only if you know how to attract it properly. And that's the key differentiator. So, today, my other promise to you guys is I'm going to show you a case study of a deal I bought recently with a few partners, where we literally spent less than what a used car would cost you to raise the capital. So $7.5 million costs next to nothing to raise it. Sir, I know we were talking yesterday, you've raised a similar amount of money, and in fees alone, you've paid well into 6 figures in fees. This amount of money is comparable to what that gentleman had told me, and I spent the equivalent of a used Toyota to buy this. So I'll show you guys how to do that as well. And that's what we did. So you're gonna be able to raise millions with this process, even if you're starting out. And everything I've shown you guys here, so I had Michelle up here a few minutes ago, she's one of our clients. She's raised a couple $1 million between what I've done retail, what my clients have done retail. It's not even a debate. This stuff has almost helped them raise over $500 million in equity. So I'm not testing anything. I'm just showing you guys exactly what's worked for us. And you can talk to Michelle. She's living proof about exactly that. So let me ask you guys some questions first. How is it that the private equity guys make all the money? Has anyone ever thought about this? Like all the guys you hear about the private equity, the show like billions and all this other stuff. And the answer is, these top guys, the biggest private equity firms in the world, The reason why they make the most money is because, you guessed it, they raise the most money. He who has the gold literally makes the rules. They make all the rules because they have all the gold. That's the biggest disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street, is because y'all have the experience, but you've got the formula backwards. A lot of you guys have heard the story, find a deal and the money will come, right? You guys have all heard this. Well, who knows that to not be true? All of us. We've all had that experience. You find the deal of a lifetime, and you're banging your head on the wall, and no matter what you do, you can't find the 400 grand or the $4 million bucks. And then maybe you take a $5,000 referral fee and you go about your day. But that doesn't really move the needle for you. So these guys don't believe that to be true, and the proof is in what they do, not in what they say. Because these are the amounts of money they raise for funds, often before they even have a deal under contract. So in other words, they're literally raising billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar funds without deals. They have a thesis. Hey, we think the world's gonna go here. Do you agree with that? Yeah, I agree with that. We need $1 billion. And when it happens, we're gonna buy up all this stuff. In private equity, we call that dry powder, by the way. That's literally what we call it. So, if you wanna have that kind of leverage and power, your expertise, your talent, your track record, you already have some of that. Because you're in this room, you spent some money, you spent the time, you're here rather than sitting at home watching Hunger Games or Netflix, you're obviously investing in yourself, so you guys have that. The thing you're probably missing is the cash. Because if you don't have the cash to close, you don't have the ability to leverage the portfolio the way you want. Now, the good news is these private equity firms I'm referencing, they're not your competition. That's the good news. But because what they do, you can do at a smaller level, whether it's 10 million, $1 million, $100 million, you can literally copy their playbook. So that's what I'm sharing with you guys here. And why would you want the cash to be able to close? Well, look, I mean, the last offer I wrote on, when they wanted 16 and we paid 11.1, do you think they gave me 11.1 because I'm a good guy? No, I was like, well, here's the bank account. You know, it's a negotiation, obviously, but you know, they knew we could close. My favorite deals are ones that fall through with other people because of financing. Because they've already had the pain. I don't have to sell them on the pain, they've already felt it. And there's a lot more pain today than 12 months ago, and there'll probably be a lot more in 24 months, or the next 12 to 24 months, which is actually why Kenny and I, Macro and I, are looking at another fund to replicate what we did back in 09. Because it's exactly the same theme. That's where the world's going. So, you want to write all cash offers, but how do you actually do it? So, for context, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marcin. I've raised well into 9 figures in private capital, a couple $100 million in retail, a couple $100 million institutional. More importantly for you guys, I've taught what I do to my clients who've raised over $250 million to do it themselves, like Michelle, like other people. And as sidebar, why we call M1 M1 is because the first million is the hardest. That's literally why I called it M1, in case any of you guys are wondering. For some of you, it might be the first 10 million, first 100 million, but it's that next step beyond just your friends and family. Once they're done hearing from you, you and I will be friends, because that's literally the transition most people go through. And then finally, one of the things we did that you might also want to leverage from me in my playbooks is I've taught over 1,000 financial advisors, private equity professionals, how to build their book of business. So in other words, one of the ways I got other people to sell my funds, not just one-to-one reselling, was I taught other advisors how to build their book of business, so that in turn, when their business grew, guess where they would send those checks? To our deals. So that's the experience I'm coming here with, guys, just for some context. Now, you might be sitting there, you're thinking, you know what, it's probably gonna be too hard, or where do I start? You know, I don't have any extra time or resources, or, you know, I don't know how to find investors. Now, if you're sitting there, you're not thinking that, that's fine. That's actually good, because you're ready to be scaled, and we can scale you, because I've done that as well. Now, in this presentation, like I said, I'm gonna give you the ability to start with that experience. I'll lay out my blueprint for you. I'm gonna show you how I raised that 7.5 million for next to nothing. And finally, I'm gonna give you that capital raising blueprint that will allow you to find additional investors on autopilot, spending maybe 2 to 4 hours a week. Now, sir, you've raised 40 million, you said so far.
Somewhere.
How many investors, how many new leads are you getting on a weekly basis?
Well, that's one of the big reasons I'm here. Not a lot.
Yep.
Not a lot. I you know, have a really strong investor base, and so I'm in constant
Yeah.
contact with them and have a program.
But
for
how many
them.
new people?
Yeah, very little.
Right.
You know,
So-
per week, probably less than one.
Right, so your name was?
Tyler.
Tyler. So Tyler is a prime example of somebody who scales. 40 million capital raise is impressive, but even that was probably hard fought the last 10, 20 million. It starts to slow down like quite a bit, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with the first part being, you know, the hardest. And I'm talking that's over 20 years.
Oh, that's over 20 years,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not like, right.
How would you like to do that in 20 months?
Yeah, exactly.
So as an example, guys, I checked my phone this morning, I get an update every day. We had either 63 or 73 new leads in our pipeline in the last 24 hours. And I can tell you about 19.5% of Americans are accredited. Therefore, there's another 12 or 16, whatever the number is, accredited investors in my pipeline that have opted in to hear from me. That's a different frame than going out there and chasing people, which I'll get to here in a second. So, obviously that's what you guys want to learn, but before we get into that, here's the 3 reasons why people don't invest with you today. And this is not what I shared yesterday, so please pay attention. The first one is, you obviously don't have what they want. So how do you know if you don't have what they want? Well, they're just not buying it. They're not responding. Your friends and family, they're not responding. No one's picking it up. Like, these are examples of things that people don't want. So you don't even try to scale them, right? You guys are obviously beyond that point because you're getting good responses from friends, from family, whatever it is. You're getting a warm audience. So obviously you have something that people want, but you're showing it to the wrong people. So this guy here with a block of ice, he's not going to be making any sales in this environment, right? No one's going to be buying this here. That guy, if he had something that people want and he showed it to the right people, would he make sales? No, because he'd still have to package it the right way. So here's the example. That same block of ice, you're on the beach, trying to get sales. Who's buying your, everybody wants the cold stuff, but what are they going to do with your block of ice? Nothing. So you repackage it. And all of a sudden people are like, I get it. Mm-hmm. This is the process you guys were missing in your capital raising. Y'all walking around with blocks of ice on the beach. Because you know that people want what you have, but you don't know how to make it a popsicle. And that's the gap for most people in capital. Literally, that is the gap in capital raising. So, here's how to start without experience. It starts with you telling your story. The story is the narrative that weaves into. That's all good, guys. These are the tangibles. These are the things that you will eventually potentially stumble over just by sheer fact of trying to explain what you do. The thing most of you are missing, I challenge almost all of you are missing, is the X factor, which is your unfair advantage. So what is it? And that was when Michelle, you and I worked together. That was literally what it was. You had your story, you had this, you had that. But how did you weave together? And here's why I'm the person for this. That's literally the linchpin for most of you guys, the vast majority. So how do you tell your unfair advantage? Well, it starts with your story, your why, and the evidence or proof of you being that person, all welding together and telling it as one thing. So when you meet somebody within 30 to 60 seconds, they're like, I understand why Tyler does that. I totally understand how Michelle got there. I know why Mark does what he does. Because if you don't have that, there's this gap. You ever have this pit in your stomach where you're like, I just don't trust this person? Mm-hmm. That's because things don't line up. They just don't line up. We hear what we hear, but if we don't see the things consistently with what we hear, we disengage. So how do you create that narrative? That's what we're going to get into here. So for you to do that with your unfair advantage, there's really 4 things that you have to consider. And the first is to position yourself as somebody of high status. Now, what's interesting is there's a lot of different ways to get status, but the most consistent and reliable way to do this is through thought leadership. Now, I'll give you one more piece here. How do you become a thought leader? You lean into the competence and experience of your life's work. Whether you're a custodian for 20 years, a doctor, a dentist, a physiotherapist, a pilot, get to see a cat, whatever it is that you've done, there's a lifetime of experience that you have within that frame. You guys understand? Like, you've done something for long enough. Like, you take somebody who's a shy and timid school teacher and you bring him or her up here who hates public speaking, and you just ask them what they think of the school system and how they can fix it, they'll go off on a tangent for 2 hours, right? Because they've lived it. Confidently, don't care who's in the room, they'll go off on a tangent.
Why is that? It's because they know what they're doing. They know that they're competent. They can take a thought leadership and apply it the right way. They can step in a position of status. That is pivotal to your ability to demonstrate your unfair advantage. And finally, what that does is it actually drives in your trustworthiness, because all of those things that I've just mentioned come together as one narrative. And that's really what it is all about. You've all met people that within 30 seconds, you're like, I want to do business with her. I want to do business with him. Why is that? Because in your mind, my theory is you've checked off all these boxes. And you're like, I want to give them money. I don't even know for what yet. Like, what are they, you guys have all met people where like, I want to give this person money, right? So how do you create that where you're attracting? That's really what it is as a starting point. So those 4 pillars plus your 4 must-haves, that is your brand identity. That is what it's all about. And guys, this is the formula that's allowed me to sit at the table with guys like this, be at events with guys like Wayne Gretzky, Kevin O'Leary, a whole bunch of different people, and I've had the good fortune to speak at events in front of thousands of people. And it's because I've packaged myself in a way that immediately shows people how to unlock the value. You guys all have this in yourself, but you have to, I'm trying to give you the frame to do it from. Okay, so obviously to build that, you need a brand that sells for you 24/7. And unlike other things in life, you can't half-ass any of these. All 4 of these things have to be in place, and they have to fire in succession. Does that make sense, guys? Is this making sense? Good. All right, so nailing this process is exactly what we've done for people like Michelle, people like Kent, your new client. We're going to work through this. We've had hundreds of people go through a program and help them package themselves in this way. You can potentially do this on your own, but there's a time cost to your ignorance. Unfortunately, it's your ignorance debt. You don't know what you don't know, and that's the process that you're going to have to go through, either on your own or with us. So here's the second piece. How I actually got the $7.5 million together for less than the price of a used car. Now, for context, this was the property. By the way, if anyone in this room is looking for commercial financing, Edward, if you could just put your hand up in the room over there. That's genius right there, the living legend. Edward's my guy. Please talk to him. He knows how to get you guys money. He's fantastic. So, Edward, thank you for this. Now, for context, this property, we bought this 144 units for 11.1 million. What makes that significant is they initially wanted 16. But when we wrote the offer, we also sent a copy of the bank account. So what did that do to my offer? It made it very attractive. And because of that, we got a $4.9 million discount on the purchase. So obviously you guys want to learn how to do that. But here's how most of you guys have traditionally been doing it in the past. Number 1 is you go and find the deal. You go and negotiate the deal from your absolute weakest point. When you don't have the money yet, you don't have the team, you don't have everything figured out, and then you have the audacity to go like, oh, write an offer. Okay, shit, let's do it. And then, and fine, there's a lot of people that sell multifamily courses, and their whole goal is to sell you the course and tell you the money's the easy part just to get you in the program. And that's, you guys are now realizing that's not how it works. That's not how we do it. But regardless, you write the offer. Okay, God forbid, or God willing, it gets accepted. What do you do then? Well, then you rush all the legal. You know, anybody overpaid for legal because they needed it done the next day? Yeah, a few of you. I have in the past. It happens because when you need it fast, you pay for it. And then what do? You scramble for the cash, right? This is the syndicator's blueprint. This is literally the syndicator's rule book. This is how they all work. That's why they're all so stressed out. They lose their hair, they go gray. You know, it's stressful. It is stressful. It's extremely stressful. Now, the other problem is when you need the money, it costs you more, right? When you need something, you're paying more. So everything from investor databases, event sponsorship, hosting dinners, you just throw out this big net, buy a bunch of banners, go out there and just try to get everybody with a pulse because you're trying to get the dough because you're on the clock. And no wonder that most people don't do this because you could be out 100 grand before you even say hello. That's how it happens. That's literally the most common thing that most people do when they think they're going to start raising capital. That's the thing they do. And it's not your fault because the people that sold you the multifamily training and they're great programs, but they don't fill the back end in. They just say, oh, don't worry, the money will find itself. But then you're like, okay, like I wasn't expecting this. And that is literally the problem in the industry that I'm hoping to help solve. So knowing how to raise capital is as important as finding the deal itself. If you don't have the cash, you have a hobby, not a business. That's Mark Cuban. So again, another billionaire, the importance of capital raising. So, and the other piece here is, don't forget, like, even if you go through this process, if you do it the wrong way, it doesn't just cost you the money and the time, but it also drains your peace. Like, sir, we were talking earlier, sleepless nights, you miss out on, like, you're just, anybody been up here trying to figure out how to get money for a deal? Has anyone in this room had that happen? A few of you, all of you, I've had it. You're up at 3 in the morning, you're sending emails, you're almost feeling like you're running a MLM and trying to reconnect, like you're just getting to the bottom of the barrel, right? It's a crappy place to be. So, the opportunities cost large, and for context, 15 years ago when I set up my first fund, it literally took me over a year to get this thing done, and I did spend over 150 grand on the fund before I even started raising any money. It was extremely stressful. Imagine that, spend 100, because that's what it was 150, that was in 2000 and, I don't know, $10 or whatever it was. It was like 300 grand today. It's a lot of money. I made every mistake along the way you could possibly make. And in hindsight, I'm glad I did it because it gave me the context to teach what I'm teaching you guys, which is really helpful. So, here's how, without meeting, now this $7.5 million that we raised, we literally did it without meeting anybody remotely, and we didn't have to spend any of this money. And the thing that I want to get across to you guys is that what I'm going to share isn't the fact that most people don't know what to do, it's that you're doing it in the wrong order. Does that make sense? Like, it's the wrong order in which that you guys are doing things. So the best part is, this next slide, if you have internet and Wi-Fi, you can literally do this. So here's the full blueprint. I'm gonna walk you guys through it, okay? It's a lot, but just here's the full process that we went through on this property. Now, you might be wondering, well, okay, that's great, but Marcin, this was 70, you have 70,000 contacts. How did you do this from scratch? Like, if you're sitting there and you have no context, no database, like, how do I implement the things that you're saying from scratch? So here's the second half. We talked about your unfair advantage and how to package and position yourself. The second piece is to get it in front of people. So how do you do it if you don't have any people in your database? And the answer is you rent or borrow an audience from someone else. That's literally the quickest, easiest hack in the business, to be able to rent or borrow somebody else's audience or platform. And that's exactly what I do for my clients. So as an example, what we do for our clients is once they're packaged, they have immediate exposure to 70,000 of our contacts, 72,000 now, 300 plus capital raisers, and family offices all across North America. So what this does is it puts jet fuel on your unfair advantage, which is really important if you're trying to get things primed, if you're trying to prime the pump. So whatever other people's platforms you guys are using, whether it's ours or you're trying to figure it out on your own, there's 3 things that you're gonna have to incorporate in this process. The first one is your unfair advantage. We've talked about that. It's really important that you can create that narrative around what you do and why it's so compelling so that people just want to buy into it. The second piece is the actual funnel and the nurture process that you put people through, and then you have the right scripts to be able to close the investors. That's the method. So yesterday I talked about the funds first formula, where you have the different components where you can figure out where your weaknesses are. This is what gives you the method to assess and improve that entire process. And then the third piece is to actually do things in the right order, which I'm going to give you on the next slide. The order we do things in is number 1, position your unfair advantage. This is the first thing we do. Second thing we do is deal structure and team assembly. Third is legal and compliance. The challenge most of you have is you start at number 3 because you think the lawyer and the accountant is going to tell you how to do 1 and 2. And that's not true. If they told you how to do 1 and 2, they wouldn't be lawyers and accountants. They'd be business owners, right? So most of us show up, and again, it's not your fault because you don't know, right? You show up, you think you're going to get that structure from them, and they're going to tell you, well, what do you want? How do you want it? How do you want to do this? Who's going to do it? Like, you need to show up ready to guide them through the entire process. And so you raised 40 million, you know that to be true. Like, you need to show up, have them ready to execute your vision, not the other way around. Right. 4th step is the marketing and the outreach. So based on how you do your legal and compliance, from there you lever the unfair advantage and you put it into your marketing machine, which is what we're talking about.
The fifth step is the investor engagement and verification. You want to create an environment where investors are literally showing up to your meetings thinking how much and when they're going to invest, not if. It's a different frame than, well, tell me more about you guys. I don't want the tell me more about you guys meeting. I want you to be through all that before we're even in a meeting. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. Because that is a time killer. Especially if you're trying to close something in 3 weeks. And you got to do the whole thing all over again. And obviously last piece is closing the offering. So, can you guys follow this in this order? Yes or yes? Yeah. Okay, good. So you can do this. I promise this will work. And this third piece is how do we take the actual unfair advantage with the actual blueprint itself and then create those leads. So sir, if you want to create additional 10 or 20 leads a week, this is the piece that will do it for you. And the best part is once you set this up right, those 2 to 4 hours a week will literally be the best 2 to 4 hours you spend. Because it will be the highest value, highest return on your time is to capture that attention and put them through your automated nurture sequence and only re-engage in person once they're ready to put their hand up. That's a different frame. Your time per hour, if you're not valuing it at $1,000 or $2,000 an hour, you're wasting your time. Especially in this role, especially in this business. If you want to employ and empower other people to work for you, how are you going to do it if you're making $20 an hour? What are they going to make, $3 an hour? Like you need to be making 10, 100 times more per hour. Your time needs to be worth that for you to be able to hire and empower other people to work for you. You guys get it, right? Because if your time's worth $1,000 an hour, your employee's time can't be worth more than what? A fraction of that. So, like I said, step one, and here's exactly, literally, here's one of my lead magnets that literally every day brings us some new clients. And by the way, your lead magnet can be anything from a webinar to a resource to a guide, assessment. It almost doesn't matter what it is, guys. And just to be clear, what's more important is that it's focused on your unfair advantage. Literally focus it on your unfair advantage. One of our clients owns a trucking company. We helped him create a lead magnet called What I Learned About Real Estate After 1,000,000 Miles on the Road. Click. I'm interested. Here's my information. He's a truck driver. You now have his information. You guys understand? Like all of you have a story that we can help you massage and narrate because this is the tip of the spear. This is how you engage human beings. We have the attention span of squirrels now with TikTok brain and all this stuff going on, right? Like you need to quickly captivate people to get them to want to consume more of what you're doing. This is what this is. Second, and now, by the way, if you're thinking, man, this is gonna be hard, like, look, don't worry, we got you. Like literally, we've also had virtual assistants for the last 4 years. We have an army of them. We literally have 24 VAs, and you can pay a VA as little as $4 an hour. Like $4, seriously, $4, and you get good work, and that's good money for them back home. Just so you know, they make like a fraction. They make minimum wage in the Philippines is $1.25, I think, a day, not an hour, by the way. Yeah, it's either 3 or 4. It's a couple bucks a day. So we got you. Like we have all the playbooks, the rules. Like we even have a training for VAs for our clients because we've already spent the money and the time on it. We train your VAs for you. So that's part 2 is put it online behind a landing page. You guys pretty much understand that. You can set one up even while you're sitting here. It takes you 5 minutes. There's tons of free resources you can literally use to set up the landing page. Third piece is to create a questionnaire to qualify people. So the third piece, literally, they consume your content, they like it, it's based in your excellence, based on the thing that is your unfair advantage. They buy into you, they buy into your story. You ask them a few qualifying questions. Based on how they answer those questions, direct them to a page where they can automatically set up a meeting. By the way, before they attend that meeting, I'm going to show you how to record a webinar so you answer most of the objections before they even show up to the meeting. How much time would that save you? You probably have the same 3 to 5 objections. Let me show you how to massage them in a way where you're bringing them up front, increasing your status, and actually decreasing the friction when you actually have the meeting itself. What that also does, it increases your show rate for the meeting because people aren't nervous and scared about what they're going to expect because they're being dealt with in a very professional, consistent way, which is really important. Step 5 is place that lead magnet where your target investors are. Really important. So you guys remember how I mentioned other people's platforms? Right, so all of what I shared, you guys can go and execute on your own, or you can pour gasoline on it with our platform, because literally, once we put you through this process, we've got our database, we've got our capital raisers, we've got our entire network of people that we plug into your deal for them to look and work on and potentially partner with you. So it's a way for you to help literally put fuel on the fire. And our capital raisers love us because they basically already know that we've put people through this process, so they don't have to fish out the information and try to figure it out themselves, which is huge. Now, here's some evidence. Over the last 84 days, this was up until August 24th, we've added about 4,085 potential investors to our database. Now, for context, about 18% of Americans are accredited investors. So if you take the law of averages, about 755 of those people are qualified AIs. We only deal with AIs. If you have a 506B, you have a bigger audience, or no, maybe you have a smaller audience, but you guys understand, that's our target audience. So if you assume that only 2.6 of those people are actually gonna become clients, here's how the math works out. You have about 4,085 times 18.5 times 2.6, that's about 19 and change. So let's call it 20 new clients. With an average minimum investment of $100,000, that's $2 million. My average ticket is a little closer to $250, so for me, that's $5 million. $5 million represents $15 million in assets that you could buy. You can move the needle. You know, when you hear about guys like Brandon Turner or Ken McElroy raising all this money, this is the formula. You're just missing the front end because you didn't have the podcast, you didn't have the 30 years of running a business. So how do you shortcut that and get to the good part? That you guys understand? Like this is the piece here that I really want you guys to internalize. Now, what's interesting is I know for a fact that because these people have opted into my database, my conversion rate will actually be higher than 2.6% because these are people that we've gone out to push information onto that reluctantly gave us their contact. These are people that have opted in voluntarily. It's a different psychology, it's a different frame when people come in. So now, it literally takes none of my time. My wife does not let me sit like this though, just so you guys know. She's got me doing other things now, but theoretically, in other parts of my business, if this was all things stayed equal, I could literally do this. So that's the power of building out the system. So you guys can see this working in your business, right? Can you guys see yourselves doing this? Like yourself, can you imagine yourself at the front of this funnel?
Yes.
Okay, good, because it's really important that you guys can internalize this because if you can't see yourself as being the person at the front of this funnel, it's hard to see. You have to see consistency in this for yourself. You have to see you personally being able to do this. And I can promise you guys that literally from a cold start, I've done this for thousands of people now, that you can create hundreds of qualified leads in as little as 2 to 4 hours a week. Like you can do this. Now, there's a lot of different reasons why you guys would want to do this. And I'm gonna leave you with this. Ultimately, you'll create an environment where people are showing up to a meeting qualified. They're asking you how much and when, and they're literally asking you if they can bring anybody else to the table. There's 100 other reasons I can go through, but ultimately, guys, there's a lot there. So, obviously, you guys can see how this is gonna take you from 2x, 5x to grow your business. But I guess the question is, can you guys see how the capital raising is potentially the missing piece in where you're at today? Like, do you guys, so who has a deal right now that they need capital for? Just out of curiosity. A few of you? All? Okay. Who's missed a deal because they didn't have the capital? Okay, so we're in the same room. Now it's crazy because if you close that $1 million or $2 million or $3 million funding, how different would life be today, potentially? You know, would that mean an extra $100,000, an extra $1 million in the bank? Like, it's crazy to think in hindsight how much you missed out on when you really think about it that way. Like, it's absolutely insane. And then you divide that by the amount of years that maybe potentially you're working in your sales job or your career or whatever it is. And if you divide those two things, it really starts to suck. Because it's like, man, that would have been 4 years of work, 6 years of work. Man, that would have been 20 years of work. Like but it's so crazy to think in hindsight only because you've now experienced it, which is really important. So this is a skill, and it literally, I promise you this, if you're doing deals, this is literally the bridge between where you're at and where you want to go. It is 100% the bridge. So I've covered a lot in 45 minutes, and look, it's impossible to give you guys, I literally have 11 minutes left, so it's impossible to give you guys everything I've learned in 20 years because it's taken me 20 years to learn it. And no matter how good what I've shared with you guys is, I can tell you right now, there's more. and a lot more. Michelle, you've been with me for a few months, there's a lot more?
A lot more.
There's a lot more with all this. And I can tell you guys that if you want to get the value out of this, you're gonna wanna know what's next. And like all things in business, you're gonna have a few options. Either A, do nothing. You guys are all better than that. I don't see anybody just leaving here and doing nothing with this. 2, you can do it alone. But be prepared to navigate this. Because it is this. Michelle?
Yeah.
It's this. Anyone in here is trying to raise money, it's this, it's complicated, it's convoluted. Or 3, you can do it together. So if you guys are interested in doing it together, I'm gonna walk you through how you can do it with us, potentially with us at M1. And this is gonna encapsulate the result of 20 years of me working in the space. And literally I can tell you, I've spent at least $1 million in hard costs on the marketing side of this, just the things that I'm teaching you guys about. I've put 7 figures into this already. And I can tell you what works and what doesn't work. I can call bullshit pretty fast on this stuff because I'm doing it every day. So, and obviously we've done over $2 billion in deals. My clients and I have raised a lot of capital. I'm here speaking from experience, and I think that's gonna be really helpful. And all of this, guys, I've distilled in something called the Capital Accelerator. And the Capital Accelerator is my methods, my playbooks, all my books, all the things that I've done, distilled into a system. So if you're sitting there and you've got no leads, or don't have enough leads, or you're not converting enough leads into investors, or worse, you feel like you're wasting time in meetings with wrong investors. You guys have all had meetings where you're sitting there 10 minutes and you're like, oh, right? Like, because in your mind, you hear that one thing that you're like, why am I in this room, right? Like, and that's an hour, 20 minutes driving, 20 minutes here. Like, guys, I've been there. We've all, if you haven't, you will, and when you do, you'll smile like this, you know, right? You've been in those meetings. Yeah, Michelle, you've done it probably, right? Like, and then you're like, how do I get out of this meeting? I don't want to, and then lunch shows up, right? And then you're like, oh shit, like how do you avoid that? That's a big piece. Or you feel like you're having great meetings, but people still don't invest. So even worse, they're qualified, they have the money, but they're not writing you a check. You know, so quick side story, Robert pulled me aside after I did my talk at the collective a few days ago, and he goes, I go, Robert, what was your favorite closing line with investors? He looks at me and he goes, excuse me, but is that my money in your pocket? I'm like, do you raise money like that? He goes, no, I never raised any money. So I'm like, do you raise money like that? He goes, no, I never raised any money. But my point is that people have such a hard time asking for the commitment, right? It's such an awkward, weird thing. We'll walk you guys through that. So, and then if you're constantly finding yourself guessing which strategy is going to find you most investors, or you find yourself chasing most leads, then what I'm sharing with you guys will work for you. So, the unfair advantage, what I've done is I've packaged it as Unfair Advantage Brand ID Kit. And it's a complete solution to helping you guys create your own category, to stand out in your own category of one. So literally, when people show up to a meeting with you, they're already qualified, and they're asking how much and when can they invest. Not if. If will get you killed. If will waste hours and hours of your time. Now, basically, what the Unfair Advantage will do for you is take you from being in a sea of blenders, you can become a nutrient extractor. So in other words, that's the best reframe. You guys get it? Because they're all blenders, right? But NutriBullet, they market it as a nutrient extractor. Is it any coincidence that they charge more for their equipment than anyone else? No, they just have better marketing, they have better packaging. You need better packaging, is what it is. So the Unfair Advantage is gonna help you guys do that. Positioning your Unfair Advantage will literally 2, 5, 10x your investor pipeline. And it did it for Michelle. She raised 100 grand before she met me. And over, I don't know how many months, but then within a few weeks, she raised 1.4 million. It's the packaging and the reframing of what you're doing that you're probably missing. So the Unfair Advantage Kit, like I said, position you in a category of one, create a solid foundation for your meetings, package you to create more leads, and it'll also give you 12 months of content. So we'll literally pre-create 12 months of your content for you that you can use online, for social media, for marketing, all this stuff, because you're gonna need it. And it might as well be positioned and packaged in a way that you can actually use it for your business. And of course, you're gonna be able to build relationship and trust with people faster. And again, for context, like when I did this with our business over the last 84 days, the reason why we've been able to add so many people to this database is because I've tested and retested this specific process. This almost cost me 100 grand. Just this process. Time, money, energy, it was 2,000 plus hours for my team.
you know, it was a science. We got it down to a science. And I'm gonna give you guys this so you can save all the trial and error, because you're gonna spend a lot of time doing this. And the thing is, if I valued the unfair advantage, the brand identity kit, just as a fraction of my time and money, I'd have absolutely no problem selling this alone for $9,600. Full disclosure. Michelle, would you have paid that just for that? Knowing what you know now?
It was fantastic. I was really impressed.
Yeah. And it's because it's packaged for you. Now, if you've never worked with investors, I've made this specifically for you because you don't know what you don't know yet. Literally, one of the things I did is I created a 5 new investors in 5 days framework where we've had over 10,000 people go through this process to actually refine and create a process that I knew would work. And we did this for years before we even started selling it. And through this, I'm actually going to show you how to find your target market, choose the outreach platform, create the system, and actually get those meetings so you can follow up and provide value so people don't feel like you're pitching them, which is really important. You want them to lean into the conversation, not feel like they're being pitched. That's the first piece. And all of those things will come with my scripts. And literally, if you're new to the business, this will literally be all you need to raise your first couple $1 billion. And everything else will just be bonus. They'll serve for you. Tyler, you've raised tens of millions of dollars. This is a good primer. But what you would probably want help with is the investor lead generation. So I've actually created an investor lead generation system where we'll actually train you and your team on all the funnels, all the pipelines, all the things that work for us. Actively, here's the dashboard, here's what's working, here's why, and you're actually going to be able to use that in your business. So the money that I've spent, literally to take it one step further, will actually also give you the actual lead generation funnel that I've used on somebody's client. So I'll give you the lead generation funnel. So there's a very specific funnel to reach out to people that are going to raise between $1 million to $100 grand to $1 million bucks. And that's a very different funnel than trying to get people for 25 grand, which you probably don't want to deal with. So this funnel is very specific for those high net worth people. And I can tell you right now, we spend currently about $55,000 a month testing our funnel. Have any of you guys seen my ads, by the way? A few of you? Okay, good. So there's part of the $55,000 a month. There you go. Some of that is ads. Thank you. Thank you for spending my ad dollars. By the way, if you're already a client, just scroll through. That shit costs me money, right? So, my point is, you get access. It does. If you stay more than 2 seconds. So if you don't like somebody, watch the whole damn ad, okay? They're gonna have to pay for it. But my point is I'll give you access to all of it for a fraction of that, and I value this and this easily at another $15,000, just at a fraction of what it is. So the other thing is, the strategies that I have, I've developed and actually grown out a database of over 70,000 people. One of the questions we ask our people on our app grading, by the way, if you don't know what app grading is, that's something else we'll teach you, is we actually ask them if they're an accredited investor. So we have a significant list of people that you already want to sell to that I've already paid for. So what we'll do is, literally, over that period of time, you'll have access to that database literally in the snap of a finger. So what we'll do for you is, once you're packaged and ready to raise capital, we do something called Deal Flow Live, where you can literally pitch your deal to our list. Why am I willing to do that? Well, as you know, sir, not every deal is going to fit for everybody, so I don't care. Here, we don't charge you guys any commissions, we don't charge you guys any fees. There's platforms out there for a fact that I know that they charge between $5,000 and $10,000 just to do that once. We don't charge anything for it, it's just a value add, so it's an additional value for our clients. And then finally, if you're like me, you know the access to being in the right rooms at the right time. Michelle yesterday upgraded her pass to VIP just so she could go to the dinner with Ken McElroy. Paid an extra $2-3 grand to go, right? Was it worth it?
I was, yeah, it was
Of course it was. You're in the right room, right? So I will put you guys in the right room with 80 to 100 capital raisers that I've already trained and taught, that are raising capital, but they don't want to do their own deals. They're my network. They're my people. They trust me. They've gone through my program, and they're looking for deal flow. If you have deal flow, great. That's what they need. I value that at $5,000. It's worth significantly more than that, in my opinion. So let's recap. The Unfair Advantage Brand ID Kit, the lead funnel system, the investor lead generation process, where we'll literally train your staff for you, and your Deal Flow Live. Total value of this is $34,600. Now, question for you, if you've ever hired the wrong person. Anyone hired the wrong person in the room before? My wife's putting her hand up. Not marry the wrong person. Hire. Okay?
So look, you guys know how much pain it can be for your business, right? You guys get it. It's incredibly painful. Adam one of the big things is not just my 20 years of experience, but my depth of my management team. My team, my track record, all of that is possible because we made the right hires, and unfortunately I've had to fire some of the wrong people, and of course when I did that, it kind of felt like this a little bit, right? And burn a little bit of cash. So the good news is the payroll cost, I will take that risk for you because I already have the experts on my staff that I've paid and trained that are running all my stuff for me anyway. Michelle can attest, some of our other clients can attest. They literally come in, if they have questions about their pipeline, you come in on a call, you ask your question, not next year, next week, literally today, you ask it, you get an answer, and you implement it in your business. The value, pay for speed, and that is incredibly valuable. So you'll get access to all of that risk-free. And today, I only value that at a fraction of my payroll, which is $4,800, and I can tell you my payroll is that, if not per day, pretty soon. Are you guys okay for a few more minutes? Because I don't care about that time.
Yeah.
So well, I just want to finish up. So, for context, before I had this training program, I literally charged my clients $20,000 to $30,000 a month as a consulting fee. That's what it was. And with that fee, I would literally charge them that regardless of success. I'd charge them a bonus for success, and I would take a piece of the company. You know that to be true. There's people out there like that do that. And I would charge up to 1/3 of the ownership in the business. That's just what I did. So we'll actually include all of that in this process with you guys here today. So total value of everything here is 15.6. And look, I'm gonna finish off with this. When you implement all of this, your ideal clients are reaching out to you organically. You've got your team booking qualified leads. You have everyone showing up to your meetings, and you're creating an environment where it's when and how much. And best of all, you don't have to answer 90% of the questions on the phone because they're already showing up with a preconceived notion of what they want, and they're just confirming if you are who they think you are. Some of you are probably doing that with me here today, where you're like, I already know I want this, I just want to know if this guy's legit or not, right? So how do you create that narrative for somebody where they're coming into a meeting with you thinking if this is the right person to work with? That's what you guys want to be able to create. So, for you guys, it's probably not that you're not working hard enough, it's just you're not doing things in the right order. Now, I've run out of time, but the last thing I'm going to share with you guys here, before I share with you guys the opportunity, is the extra support. So everything I've shared with you is great, but what you're really going to need is a blueprint to actually know what order to do this stuff in. Otherwise, it'll feel like it's too much. It'll feel overwhelming. So the capital raising roadmap, which I talked about yesterday with the funds first formula, gives you that. So I actually give you the framework for how to implement and track everything within your business in a way that makes sense. So you actually know if you have a sales problem, a marketing problem, an operations problem, you'll know where your problem is. Because one thing I know is if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? Like you just think that the only problem you can solve is the tool that you have. But you actually need to know what your problem is. And most of us don't really know what that is. So you can do some of this on your own, but what you're really wanting to be able to do is get to a point where you can grow and raise capital through other people like I've done. When I talk about having raised $150 million for Ken McElroy, that wasn't just me. We built a team, we had infrastructure, we had advisors, I went to other broker dealers, we did all kinds of stuff. So that's part of my package as well. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of other things that I can include in this package for you guys, and I'll just skip to the good part. There's a lot of other things that I'm gonna give you guys. Are you guys okay with that if I just skip this and just give it to you anyway? Okay, because I've run out of time, and before I get kicked out, I wanna make sure you guys see what this actually is. Ultimately, you guys are gonna have access to all this other stuff. There's a total value here of about $78,700. And most importantly, guys, I have absolutely no trouble, no qualm at all charging you guys this amount of money, because I've spent tenfold that just on marketing alone. So it doesn't bother me to charge you guys this. Because I know for a fact that even if you apply a portion of this, and all you do is raise $100,000 and get one new investor for life, it'll more than pay for itself, 100%. So if you could take $78,000 and exchange it for $1 million, would you do it? Of course you would. So here's the deal. Oh, by the way, here's some successes. People raise millions, lots of millions. All the millions. I'm out of time, so I gotta skip the good part. So look, I'm not gonna charge you guys the $78,000 because I wanna make this successful. So that's why even if I charged $20,000, I feel totally comfortable with it, because on a monthly basis, that's what I would charge my clients, literally for this. This is what it was on a monthly basis. And if all you did was raise $1 million, you'd save yourself $40,000 on legal fees alone. That's what it would be. I'm gonna get the hook here in a second. So what I'm trying to say to you guys ultimately is, in this business, because I want to make this approachable but still an investment, I'm happy to give you guys this entire package for the cost of $9,600. And I think it's reasonable. I think it's attainable. Michelle, was it worth it?
It was absolutely worth it.
Yeah. Kent, has it been worth your money so far?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's, there's a whole bunch of reasons I can get into with this with you guys, but ultimately think about it this way. Worst case scenario, you do what's required and you bring in an extra $1 million.
Buy deals from other people? Could I buy a deal? Could I literally go in the sub 2 Facebook group right now and buy a deal within 5 minutes?
Yes.
Do I? But I don't need to have a cold caller?
No, like,
I don't have to do any of the work and like negotiate and do the paperwork? That's not Mary, that sounds like a scam.
so like, let's say I want to buy 30 in next 1 year.
She's the person that asked the question.
I'll answer your question. I'm the same way. Everything's...
Yes, sir. There's still tickets available. Just go in the featured section of the Facebook group. I believe. Please. Everybody, the whole community sitting together. Watch what we say. Abby, let's take a photo. Bro, you're messing with my blue.
Alright, let's do video.
Okay. I'll eventually get there.
We love your hair. We love your blue dress.
Steal the t-shirt.
Hi.
Of course. Yes.
Well, he's gonna get you.
Cossacks are.
Cossacks are made
This girl's just the photographer for everybody now.
I know. I would buy you book the year you're out.
Oh yeah, I actually told everybody like don't buy my book, and I gave all the book. I gave the books
Reverse
away.
psychology works?
No, I'm just like, why do I want you to buy my book? Like, I'd love to, yeah. I wonder if this is permanent. I hope it's not. Just look at my hand.
The last video that I watched was at Hawaii.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah.
I just had to, I work from Maui, that's why, so I really had to.
Do I wait in this one or do I have
I will buy your book. Unless you're giving right now.
I don't have any more, sadly. Let's take a photo. Your phone, Jerry, you'll take it if you want. Put your purse up down though. We love your hair too. We love the dress too. Thank you. Joyce. Here you go. All right, let's rock and roll.
Invest no more money. What everybody in this room is here for is one thing. That's it. It's the end of the day. All we want is our time back and the freedom to do what you want, when you want, anytime you want, and nobody can be telling you can't do it. And that's what everybody wants. Nobody wants the real estate for the real estate. We want the real estate for our time back. We want real estate for freedom. And it's how ironic is it that we're in the freedom room? The universe is lining up everything. And so Sauer asked me these questions, and that this is true wealth, my friend. I love what Zig Ziglar said. Nobody wants the bed for the bed. We want the bed for a good night's sleep. I'm going to say this. Nobody wants real estate for the real estate. You want real estate for the time and freedom. I want you to all think about that. I had $6 million. I couldn't trade my money for my dad. I would have gave him $6 million all day so he could live so I could spend more time with him. But it was too late. Get what your priority is. Get what your core value is. Make decisions based on your core value. And not based on someone else on stage selling you a dream. That's their dream. And they might not even know their own dream. Okay? This is my biggest life lesson right here. All I do and all my people when I teach them, make sure we get enough door that gets you out of the rat race. After that, let's go and invest in real estate for the enjoyment of it. And let's do it as aligned to your core value. And when you do that, you look back and all of a sudden, you got 1 million, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, $1 billion in net worth, and you just had fun the whole time enjoying the journey. This is what I learned from my dad passing away. So, Dad, thank you, Dad, for being a blessing to me, Pop. All right, I want to end with this, and I need your help because Tarl is somewhere out in the hallway, and I want Tarl and Ken Kiyosaki to go, what in the fuck is going on in that room over there? Why are they so damn loud? I'm going to leave this with you and 2 thoughts. Okay? This is one of my mentors. He says, if you don't find a way to make money while you're asleep, you're going to work until you die. Okay? So, I'm going to ask everybody in a minute. I'm going to show you the 2 options from this point forward. Everybody got these 2 options. And I hope you all choose the right option with me. Okay? Here's the 2 options. Now, from this point forward, we're going to leave this room and let's make sure you choose the right option. Okay? Option number 1. Invest in real estate. Build long-term wealth. Create passive income. Pay less tax to understand or 0 tax. Get your time, and ultimately get your time and freedom back. Okay? Option 1. Option 2. Don't invest in real estate. Have no wealth. Have no passive income. Pay a lot of money to understand. Have no time and no freedom. And work until you get old and die. Everybody got that? All right. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand up for me, please. We're going to end this on a high note. All right. If you don't mind, we're going to go crazy, okay? So, let me see. Who thinks option 1 is a better choice? Raise your hand. If you believe option 1 is the idea, I want you to get up and I want you for 10 seconds with me and you. Let's go. And we're going to go, let's go! For 10 seconds. Super loud. Heard you throw it up. But let's be loud. Can you all do that for me? Yeah.
The intelligence agencies are serving the interests of the military-industrial complex. The big companies, Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and their function is to provide that industry with a constant pipeline of new wars so they can sell their products. And it's ubiquitous. It's happened throughout all of our agencies, and the intelligence agencies in recent years have become more powerful vis-a-vis our democracy than at any time in our history. And they now have the power of these new technologies like AI, which are very, very frightening. They legally now can do surveillance on the American people, which was never true before. They're running many of our most important publications, so they already have the capacity to sort of dictate public perception. But with the advent of AI, they're going to literally be able to twist reality. And their capacity to surveil and control us is really, it's a frightening prospect. And that's why it's so critical now that we should be raising the bulwarks of our constitutional rights and not being part of this erosion of our constitutional rights, and particularly that the first and most important right is freedom of speech. A government that has the capacity to silence its critics has a license for any atrocity. And we're in a very frightening time now where we are seeing the normalization of censorship. I saw this quote that Vice President Harris, Vice Presidential partner, Governor Walz, said last year, where he said that the First Amendment is not absolute, that it does not protect misinformation or disinformation. And he is legally...
His company.
Yeah.
He left.
Russia.
Yeah, and then he started Telegram, which is private. And then he was flying around. Tucker Carlson's interview was fantastic with him. And at the time, though, he's like, our privacy is under attack. And I don't think, I think we've kind of taken that for granted. And it seems to me like, that Zuckerberg could have done what Pavel did, but he didn't. And he said what they're trying to do is they're trying to come in on a back door through Telegram. And he said no, and then of course just this last week he got arrested. So it's clear that everybody wants our data. They want to know what we're doing, and then they want to use that to manipulate what they want. What's the best way to fix this?
Okay, let me say a couple things and talk about how to fix it. One is that last week another development, which is Mark Zuckerberg came out and admitted that he had been pressured by the White House and had complied in censoring President Biden's political opponents. I already knew this. The press still says, "Oh, this didn't happen," but now it's kind of now there's going to be a day of reckoning. But I already won a case, and my injunction was reinstated last week by the federal judge. It's called Biden versus Kennedy, Kennedy versus Biden, and Judge Doty did this decision. He wrote a 155-page decision detailing how the censorship took place. And 37 hours after he took the oath of office, President Biden, White House opened a portal to all of the social media sites and ordered Mark Zuckerberg to begin censoring me. And Zuckerberg took down my Instagram account, which had 1 million followers, almost 1 million followers. And this portal now was controlled by the FBI. So he put the FBI in charge of censoring Americans, but the FBI then opened the portal to other agencies, including the CIA, NIH, the IRS, I don't know what they were censoring, DHS, and CISA, which is this new agency that is the center of the censorship industrial complex in this country. And so I now have an injunction against the White House from further ordering what they were ordering Zuckerberg and Twitter. Elon wasn't there yet, and the other companies to censor my speech, and not just medical issues, but also. And by the way, they were unable to point to a single factual error in anything I posted. We're very, very careful. I have a huge fact checking. We have 350 PhD scientists, MD physicians who were looking at what I wrote to make sure that everything was sourced and cited. They couldn't point to a single piece of misinformation. In fact, Zuckerberg, his people pushed back on the White House and said, This is actually factually accurate. And they had to introduce a new word, which was called malinformation, which is information that is factually accurate, but nevertheless inconvenient to the government. And it was misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. And so Facebook continues to censor me, and as does YouTube and Google. And they say, well, we're not doing it with White House approval, we're just doing it because we think it's a public service. And they censor stuff that I say about the war in Ukraine, about, a lot of different issues that have nothing to do with countermeasures, medical countermeasures. With Pavel Durov, it's very interesting to watch what happened to him, because why did they arrest him? He's arrested, first of all, in France. And of all the countries in Europe, France has robust tradition of freedom of speech, as we have. During the French Revolution, 1789, they passed all these laws on just fortifying freedom of speech. And then in the 1880s, they passed another raft of law. And the French are as proud of their tradition of freedom of speech as we are. And so it's funny that they arrest him in France. He touched down. He's a citizen of Abu Dhabi, and he's been thrown out of Russia. And he touched down in France to get gas, or, fuel for his plane. And what seems clear is that the United States must have pressured Macron to make the arrest, because they came in and tear him off his airplane, and then they put him in jail. Why would they do this? The Europeans are already censoring content. So anything they didn't like, they can remove. They don't have to arrest him. Not only that, but Abu Dhabi has an extradition treaty with France. Why didn't they just, if they thought he did something wrong, why didn't they just go through the process instead of embarrassing Abu Dhabi and doing this, this dramatic event? And I think probably it's likely that they're censoring him not because of what he's doing here, but because of what's happening in Russia. That, Telegram is heavily utilized in Russia, and it's utilized by people who are opposed to the Ukraine war. And it's also used in Ukraine by both sides. But I
tone down the CDC.
Okay.
But the second most important question for everybody here is, you had a child today. It's exactly as you say. They're a lot of money. I mean, they're a place to put drugs into. How does a parent fight back? Like, if you fight from Washington, how does a parent fight back at home against the vaccines? Or how can they stop this?
I mean, the thing is, if you're a parent today, part of the responsibility of being a parent is, unfortunately, is to not trust everything your doctor says, and to understand that the medical doctors have been co-opted by the medical cartel. That the medical schools are now run by pharmaceutical companies. They're funded by them, and that the doctors believe mainly what they're doing. They're also heavily compensated. A typical pediatrician's office makes about 50% of its funding comes from vaccines, not actually from selling the individual vaccines, from the traffic. I mean, when I was a kid, I went to the doctor when I needed stitches, and that's it. And today, every kid goes to the doctor at least 10 times to get their vaccines, and that foot traffic in and out of the office is a major part of the business plan for the pediatrician office. And they're also then rewarded by Blue Cross Blue Shield, which has a reward schedule for pediatricians who vaccinate 80 or 85% of the kids in their office. Get these giant bonuses, I think $40 or $400 per kid, huge amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they make, making sure that 85% of the kids are vaccinated, and that's why they throw you out of the office if you fight back. It's not because they care so much about your particular kid, it's that you'll throw off the metrics and you'll lose them their bonuses. And so those schedules have now been published so people can actually go look at the Blue Cross Blue Shield schedule, and you can see what your pediatrician is making, and it's huge amounts of money from complying. And so, they have these perverse incentives that make it so that they're not really treating your kid as an individual patient. And so your job in a democracy, in today's democracy, is to do your own research. And that's hard to do, but you need to do it to protect your child. And parents go out of their way to make sure that their kids are eating the right food, that they're not getting toxins, they're getting organic vegetables, organic meats, etc. But you need to do the same thing with your medicines. The medicines, there's a huge profit incentive for people to overlook problems with them. And so that is the advice that I would give people. You can go to Children's Health Defense, which is my organization, and there's other groups like Physicians for Informed Consent that publish information about every vaccine, for example. And you can see, why is my kid getting this? What does the science say? What do the major studies say? What are the side effects, etc.? And what are the risks from the underlying disease to my child compared to the risk from taking this product? Well, those are all choices that individual parents have to make, but unfortunately, there's no easy way out. You got to do your own if you're a parent and you want to be a good parent, you need to do your own research about everything today, because everybody's lying to you. Everybody, like I said.
These big.
Yeah, I've sued almost all the agencies. So I've sued CDC, I've sued FDA.
You sued them?
I've sued them. I've sued NIH, I've sued USDA, I've sued DOT, I've sued FCC. I just won a big suit against the FCC. In the Court of Appeals for lying to the public about cell phone radiation, about the cell phone safety. And see, the FCC now has to go back and redo all of its regulations on your cell phones. Cell phone, if you got a kid, don't ever let him put his cell phone near his head, and don't let him carry it in one of his front pockets. If it's a girl, don't let them carry the cell phone in their breast pocket. Don't let them carry them anywhere near their ovaries. And the farther the cell phone is from your head, when you're talking, the better off you are. So, there's tens, literally, this is not hyperbole when I say tens of thousands of studies that show the really extreme dangers of cell phone radiation. And people are not paying attention. A lot of our kids sleep with the cell phone right next to their heads. They fall asleep with them on the bed. Don't let them do that. Get that cell phone. And if you can get away from them at night so that they get 8 hours without it, anywhere near them, that is really important. Anyway, I litigate against them all, and when you litigate against them, you get a PhD in how to unravel corporate capture. In many of these agencies, I know who the individuals are who are corrupt. For example, when I sued Monsanto, we came across email exchanges between the heads of Monsanto, the top executives, and the head of the pesticide division at EPA, a man named Jess Rowland. I like saying his name because people should know who the villains are. And he was pretending to be a public official, but he was secretly working for Monsanto for a decade, fixing studies hiring corrupt scientists, these mercenary scientists, we call them biostitutes, and to do phony studies and then killing studies for Monsanto that would show the links between cancer and using Roundup. And so, and in many of the agencies, I can name the people who are actually most corrupt. The major public health agency that needs to change, I mean, all of them do. FDA needs to be completely reorganized, and we have a whole plan for doing that. EDC has to be able to reorganize, and most of the stuff we can do without congressional help. We can do it through policy, through firing people, through guidance, and through regulations. But NIH is the most important because NIH was the gold standard scientific agency in the world. When I was a kid, most nations did not have a scientific research arm. The United States was really unique. There's a couple of European countries, England does. NIH is making billions of dollars on that product, and yet it's getting us to use it, right? And it's making billions, so that's a conflict of interest. Plus, there are 6 individuals who work for NIH who were handpicked by Anthony Fauci, who each make $150,000 a year forever, not for their lives, but their children, their children's children, as long as that mRNA product is on the market. They're collecting money, and these are the highest officials at NIH. So, the NIH has a budget, an annual budget of $42 billion. It distributes that money to 56,000 scientists, mainly at universities, to do scientific research. And it used to be they would be looking for what is causing the autism epidemic, what's causing the diabetes epidemic. I did food allergies, peanut allergies suddenly appear in 1989. I did autoimmune diseases suddenly blow up in 1989. What happened? Those are the questions they would normally be asking. Those are the questions we want them to answer. They don't look at any of those issues. What they look at is how do we develop new drugs to treat all these chronic diseases and then cash in on them. And I'm going to end that. And I'm going to say, no, the maximum you can get is $1 per year. And what has happened is that NIH, instead of doing scientific research now to find out what's making us sick, most of the studies they do are about incubating new drugs for the pharmaceutical industry and then cashing in on them. And so I'm going to end that, and I'm going to say, you know what, we're going to give infectious disease a break for a couple of years, and we're going to give drug development a break. And we're going to find out why America has the sickest children on the face of the earth.
Yes.
There is no nation in the world that has children as sick as ours. They are, when my uncle was president, 6% of Americans had chronic disease. Today, 60% of our children do. And as I said, when my uncle was president, there was 0 spent on chronic disease. Today, it's $4.3 trillion. It's 95% of our medical budget. And it's all on disease that for which there was no treatment because they were essentially non-existent prior to 1960. And we're now, there's no country in the world that has anything like this. We spend 2 to 3 times what Europeans spend on our health care, and we have the worst health outcomes. We're 79th in the world in health outcomes. We're behind Mongolia, behind Cuba, behind Nicaragua, behind Costa Rica. And we've lost 5 years since 1970 of longevity compared to European countries. We're getting shorter and shorter lived every year. We have cancer rates, and it's not only our physical health, but mental health as well. Suicide's now the biggest, cause of death of teens, and you're seeing depression. I think 25% of women are on antidepressant drugs. I think 18% of our kids are on Adderall, and then SSRIs and benzos, and we're medicating the whole population, and we have the worst health outcomes. During COVID, America had the highest body count of any country in the world. We had 16% of the COVID deaths in our country. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. There's countries, we were told Haiti is going to get wiped out by COVID because they're not going to be able to afford the vaccine. Nigeria is going to be wiped out. That's what Bill Gates and Fauci told us. Well, guess what? Haiti had a 1.3% vaccination rate. 1.3%. We had like an 87% here. Nigeria had 1.4% vaccination rate, and Haiti had 14 deaths from COVID per million population. We had 300. Haiti had 13 deaths per million population. So we had 200 times the death rate. Black Americans were dying at 200 to 300 times the rate as blacks in Haiti, the poorest country in the hemisphere. And when CDC was asked about why do we have the highest death rates, they said it's not our fault, it's because Americans are so sick. They have all these chronic diseases. And the people who died from COVID were people who were obese, they had diabetes, they had asthma, they had autoimmune diseases, and we have that's what we have. So the average death from COVID, according to CDC, had 3.8 chronic diseases. So it was the chronic disease that was killing them. It was chronic disease that took them to the top of the cliff. And they're hanging there by their fingernails, and COVID came and stepped on their fingers and dropped them off. But it wasn't the COVID that was killing them. COVID did not kill healthy people. It killed unhealthy people. And we have the unhealthiest people in the world, and that's why we had the highest death rate. And why is our country, which had the best healthcare system in the world when I was a kid, why do we have the worst health of any country on earth? And 77% of our kids today are ineligible for military service because of poor health. It's a national security issue, but it's sinking us economically to 5 times our military budget. This is what's bankrupting our country more than anything else.
God bless you, Bobby Kennedy.
It's going to be a wild ride over the next 12 months, I'm sure. I hope you guys get a lot of connections. We really do. Kenny and I believe in everything we're doing here. Really appreciate Robert Kiss, obviously.
I'm not going to lie, I'm beat. I'm going to sleep for a week.
I told when we were creating the schedule, I'm like, oh, we have this panel. Kenny's like, I'll moderate it. Oh, we have this panel. I'll moderate. I'm like, oh, you can't do all this stuff. So,
self-inflicted.
I think we had like 9 sessions. But no, we love all you guys. We really appreciate you guys supporting Limitless. We hope to see you guys again next year. We do have a little party that'll be going on outside as well. Please stay connected with each other. Please do something different out there with your lives. Please do something for your family's financial futures, right? Just please take care of each other. Because what you see on social media, what you see on the news, that's really not most of us, right? Not at all. And it's really what you pay attention to that matters most. So just pay attention to your neighbors, pay attention to your friends and your family, and do what you can to just improve your lives and grow your financial lives. And we hope that you guys in the evening, we hope to see you guys next year.